Hey, this is Dave from metalepidemic.com. Thank you for checking out our YouTube video. Please feel free to hit the subscribe button below if you like this type of content, and we hope you enjoy the review. What's up, guys? Thanks for checking out our review. For this review, Duncan Kyle and myself have been checking out the new album from four-piece death metal unit LIK. The band's new album, Misanthropic Breed, will be released on September 25th via Metal Blade Records. So, we reviewed an album just a couple of weeks ago where the band sounded like they were from Sweden, but were actually from Belgium. This time, however, the band's sound and country of origin are aligned. LIK definitely have that Swedish death metal sound, no doubt, and they are from Sweden this time, so this time it's all good.
I get the feeling this is like some sort of weird, like, when I stand on your foot and wink at you, you will answer to the name Mr. Anderson. You know what I mean? It's like a kind of, right, Dave, I'm the one that fucks up this usually. Thanks for making sure you spoke slowly at the start and let me know where it was from before I entered the scene making a cunt of myself. Dave's like, Sweden, Duncan.
Yep.
Not like, people can't see the video call, but he is staring right at me and his eyebrows went up when he said Sweden. So as if I couldn't work that out myself, Dave.
You lying fuck.
Yeah, I had not a fucking clue where they're from at all. I know where I wanted to say, but I'm glad I didn't. I was going to say...
Oh, tell us.
I was going to say Florida. Just adding to the fact that Duncan cannot... He can pick out accents, but apparently not sounds from countries. I'm going to swing right in on this one to begin with. Just to say that I really, really enjoyed this album, and I'm not sure why. This, like, in the... Well, I want a bit of context here. Once again, if people go back and listen to the archives, they've heard that I can get a bit lethargic listening to death metal. I can find it at times a bit boring, a bit repetitive, and at times a lack of, I don't know, inspiration to my ear canals, Dave. But...
Oh, what a shame.
Yeah, I know, it is. It's shameful. It's just not... Hey, it's not a genre that I am gravitating towards with any great urgency. That being said, we have listened to some exceptional death metal albums this year, and I will kind of double down on Dave's view that 2020 is the year of death metal. It's taken off, and I think you're right, because like the quality across... I've yet to hear a bad death metal album. You know what I mean? One where I'm like that.
Fucking year for it, isn't it? Jesus.
Yeah, I'm like... it's just been like all great across the board. My enjoyment levels went up and down as opposed to the actual qualities of the album. LIK should be in that category of bands that I shouldn't really have that much of an interest for. They play a very down the middle style of very brutal, very aggressive, like hyper aggressive death metal, without any of the twists and turns that some of the other bands are doing this year, and we're going to bring this element in, and then you're like, they have a very, very vicious fucking sound, and sound very much like their album artwork. I imagine decaying bodies pulling themselves from the ground and with amplified instruments getting ready to jam. So on paper, this shouldn't really resonate with me, but it really fucking did. And I'm at a loss as to why. I don't know if it's because some of the other death metal that has come in recently has been kind of hyper technical and really well produced, that this is in contrast to that, so it's made it stand out more. But yeah, this is tight as fuck. Like, I can't describe how disgusting the vocalist like sounds. You know, like a really fucking like he gargles with acid, and you know, and fucking flosses with barbed wire. He just got a really fucking visceral, like kind of sounds like, I just imagine him you look around and see him in a restaurant and he's chewing on his glass. Just like a really painful, like sore throat sounding vocal, and it totally works in this album because the production is like a rusty chainsaw going through like an anus. You know what I mean? It's just like, I mean, there's no way. I'm struggling.
That is the one-liner for this review.
Right. But it just
a rusty chainsaw going through an anus.
Like really, that's all. Like all I could think
How
about.
do you know what that sounds like?
But,
And what is the comparison there? What is the context for you to compare that to? I'm just like, what?
I was in Glasgow on Saturday. So it's what they call a Glaswegian rooster. You know what I mean? Not a cock-a-doodle-doo. It's the sound of a rusty chainsaw going up an arsehole. So, and like, I genuinely don't know what it was about the album. But like right from the weird, right at the start, in fact, the first like 4 songs back to back are just like getting hammered in the face with something really unpleasant, fast, just really, really, really fast. And I kind of at that point I hit pause because I was like, can I just take a wee breather and all the rest and hit play again. The rest of the album's exactly the same, and it works really, really, really well for them. Like I say, I am not the audience for an album like this. Yet I thought this was really fucking good. This is another one that repeat listens. There is nothing exceptional on this album at all, like to the level where like they're virtuoso guitar players. But what they've constructed together is one of the more unpleasant sounding death metal albums I've heard this year, and I'm all the more thankful for it. I think, like, once again, to show. It's me that keeps going on about how one-dimensional death metal is, and I unfairly malign that whole subgenre by saying that because in the space of the last couple of months we've found that it can go all manner of different places, and once again LIK occupy a certain sound and a certain space which I didn't realise I really wanted in my life at the moment, and it's there. So yeah, the title track as well, short, blunt, right to the point, and then it's followed by the aptly named Flesh Frenzy, which is what happens after you insert the rusty chainsaw into the anus. So yeah, this is fucking great. It's another one that I thoroughly enjoyed. So yeah, maybe I am becoming a bit of a death metal fan, Dave.
It's working.
Maybe.
See?
Fan by osmosis. I like it.
These guys very much stick within the confines of their, the Swedish death metal sound, and you can hear that like from the get-go. They're very good at what they do. As you said, this album is really tight. It is punishingly heavy, and it does exactly what it says on the tin. LIK aren't going to be a band that come out with an album full of unexpected surprises. They're not trying to reinvent the wheel. They know exactly how they want to sound, and they've perfected every last note of it, to be honest. Even down to the production, which is has some modern qualities, but it still has that kind of old school charm to it. I think this one was recorded. Oh yeah, they planned to record it at Solna Studios in Stockholm, but obviously with the COVID thing happening, they were forced to record it in their rehearsal space. And it was produced by a guy called Lawrence McCrory, who has worked with Decapitated, Firespawn, Gorod, Surreption, to name a few. Kyle, had you heard of LIK before?
Never, not once.
No?
No, not at all. You'd think I would, living so close to Sweden, but no, not at all. But I mean, it blew me away. It hit me like a fucking freight train, this album.
Yeah.
And it came out of nowhere. I saw the album out, I was like, all right, it's a colouring book for adults, like Duncan said. Like, it's black and white. It's got that old school thing, black and white, a couple with a red logo. I've had an album cover like that in my past. Death metal, of course. And so I thought I knew what I was getting, but half wasn't. It's like, it had an amazing start. That scream at the beginning of the album was just like, yeah, okay, this is great already. Guys screaming, ah! It was fucking amazing. And then it went into like some the good, fast, the songs are simple, but they're good songs, and they're fast songs, and they're to the point, and they're blunt, and like you said, the production is half modern. They've like got 1 foot in each era, like half modern, half old school. They've got, you can hear everything, and it's clear enough, but they haven't lost any of the edge. and it sounds really good. And they sound like they just don't give a fuck either.
Yeah.
Just like, we are who we are, and fuck you if you don't like it.
Yeah.
And I really gravitate towards that, and I couldn't understand a goddamn thing the guy screamed. And I liked it. But no, I'd never heard of them before, but I'm going to check out their back catalogue if they have one. I don't know if this is their first or second or 14th.
Well, their last album was called Carnage, and it got a lot of high praise. I'd actually never heard the album, but I went back and checked it out, and I can see why a lot of people regarded it as such a good album. I feel like this album carries on a lot of the ideas from Carnage, but I wouldn't say that it's a replica of that release. Sound-wise, it still has that thick, kind of meaty guitar tone that you'd expect from a band of this style, but I'd say the album does have a punchier sound than Carnage, mostly down to the drums. The production of the drums is very good. I thought the overall kit sound just had more power to it, especially the bass drum, and that gave the kind of the riffs a little bit more drive. Comparing these two albums, there was a couple of things musically that were a little bit different. Firstly, there was a bit more of an increase in darkness on this album at times. A lot of the chord choices and some of the lead work had a bit more of a kind of ominous tone, and that pretty much hit me straight away on the album opener. You can hear it on that track, and then tracks like the suitably titled Funeral Anthem. The other thing was there was a little bit more melody on this release, and again you could hear it a little bit on Funeral Anthem and Faces of Death. There's a little bit of an increase in melody and darkness, obviously, as well. The outro of Becoming is also very, very melodic, almost kind of uplifting compared to the rest of the album's tone. But the melody isn't like dominant on every track. It can be quite a subtle thing, a subtle change, but it is there. There's also a track right in the middle of the album that works a really good kind of breather moment. It's only like a minute and a half long. But I think on an album like this, that's intense and full on, it is a good idea just to kind of break things up. The other thing that hit me out of left field was the end of Morbid Fascination, which not only was my favourite track on the album, the riffs and the rhythms are just tight and in sync and with plenty of drive to them. And lyrically, it's probably my favourite track, one that kind of stuck with me after the album finished. But right at the end of the track, they drop in a synthwave section.
No, it's great. I really love that.
Like just out of nowhere, but it really works.
Yeah.
There's something about the kind of darker tone of that kind of synthwave style that kind of connects, not just with death metal, but kind of metal in general, really. I mentioned Faces of Death earlier. It was another track I really enjoyed. Some really cool time changes in that track. I love the switch ups and the kind of lingering lead work that I mentioned earlier. It really stood out. It's a fairly direct album, it's not a one that kind of particularly goes up and down. They do a good job of kind of varying the pace and the rhythm, and I think they change those elements enough to keep the listener engaged and keep the album kind of fluid. It's very consistent as an album, doesn't lit up for a second, but I'd expect nothing less from a band doing Swedish death metal.
That one track called Female Fatal to the Flesh, that was definitely a standout for me. It was a bit more, I don't know if you could say groovy, but it had a bit more of a rhythmic. It was a bit slower to begin with and changed things up just enough for the right time in the album as well, just to really give it some okay, we could do the fast aggressive stuff, we can do slightly less fast aggressive stuff, but it's just enough of a change to keep your interest. I really like that one. So yeah, that was the first one that stood out as oh, okay, cool, you guys really have got something to offer.
Yeah, I really like this album, but then again, I am a big fan of Swedish death metal. These guys, they pay homage to those big bands like Entombed, Dismember, but I think they're very good songwriters in their own right, to be honest. They have the tone of those bands, but they don't necessarily copy their formula, which I liked. Thoroughly enjoyed this. And if you haven't heard Carnage, their last album, then I'd recommend that as well. Go and check that one out. Rating wise, where are we sitting on this album from LIK? Duncan, what are you thinking out of 5 for the new LIK album?
This is a 4 for me. Yeah, like I say, I think this is... Can't quite put my finger on why I enjoyed it as much as I have, because you'd be well within your rights out there to go back and list albums that we've already reviewed where I have critiqued bands in the same manner that I'm doing, as like a, not as a full-on negative, but as more negative aspects, but it just gelled really well for me. This is one I will definitely go back and listen to again this year, 100%. So yeah, 4.
Nice. Kyle?
Yeah, I'm going to give it a 4 as well. It was short, to the point, brutal, not too polished, like a lot of metal has been in the past few years, and I just like the whole attitude. We are what we are, we like what we like, we are going to play what we play, we don't give a fuck, and here it is. And also the album cover was fresh for the paint. So it's
Nice.
a 4.
Nice. Yep. 4 from me as well. Thoroughly enjoyed this one. If you guys want to check this out, it drops on September 25th. The album is called Misanthropic Breed, out on Metal Blade Records. Check them out on Facebook, facebook.com/LIK official. That's LIK official. I'll put a link in the description below. Thanks once again for checking out the review, guys. Much appreciated. We'll be back with another review very soon, but until then, take care and speak to you soon.
Bye, everyone.
Hi, don't.
A degenerate soul